Hello everybody, today we're doing a video for GTA car kits in a Jaguar XF, and today we're going to show you how to install our Apple CarPlay and Android Auto kit. As you can see, it's already installed into this car and it's been paired to iPhone wirelessly. You can also pair it to your Android phone wirelessly. So in the original system, if we switch over there, the original navigation is now replaced by a kit. So if you press the navigation, now you have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, depending on the phone that you're going to be using. You can use the system with the original touchscreen controls. All the features of the original system will not be disabled. So if you put your car into reverse, the rear view camera will still work the same way. Nothing gets disabled. You can easily switch back to the original Jaguar system by going by the menu. So here everything stays the same. Just now you have an extra function that you didn't have before. And now we're going to show you how to install it into this particular car. So the tools that you're going to need is a T20 Torx, T25 Torx, T30 Torx. We're also going to be using our panel removal tool. This is our hook tool. And we're going to use this clip removal tool, but for this step, we're going to show you what we're going to use it for. You can also use a flathead screwdriver. And of course, you're going to need our product. So we're going to start with removing this trim piece. We'll start right here, very close to the door, with our panel removal tool. And we're going to go underneath it, and it's just held on clips. And once you remove, there's going to be two connections here. So there's a clip at the bottom that you need to press in order to disconnect. Same over here. With the door open, we will pull back this weather stripping. Now we'll use our panel removal tool in order to get this cover off. We're going to get underneath it. And you're going to see here two T20 Torx bolts, and we're going to remove them. Now we need to remove this piece of the dashboard trim. So there are two T20 Torx bolts right there inside. There's one. So then there's a clip over here on the side, which you have to unclip, and now carefully start removing this piece. And it comes off, and then there's one connection here for the vents. You have to press on the clips and disconnect it. Now we need to continue with removing everything around the screen. So with this silver trim here, so we will start with our T30 Torx. So there are the bolts right here. So we'll remove these three. As you can see, these ones are quite big ones, so you have to put them back into exact same spots. Now there are two more right here. As you see, one is deep down there, and then this one here. Now we will use a T20 Torx to remove this small bolt right there. And we're doing that in order to remove this trim around the cluster, because there's one more big bolt hiding which holds this panel in place. So now we will remove the bolt right underneath this cover. So we're going to use our panel removal tool, and here there's this small little cover which you have to get underneath, and you're going to see there's a T20 Torx bolt right there. So in order to fit our screwdriver, you have to lower the steering wheel. Now you can pull on this trim around the steering wheel. Pull it just enough that you get to that bolt right there. And that's another T30 Torx bolt. So with all the bolts removed, now this piece should be loose. And we're going to carefully remove it so you don't scratch it over here. So as you can see, it unclips, so you're going to pull back on this trim piece over there and carefully maneuver it out. And there are going to be two connectors at the back for the vent motors. So one on this side and one over here. We will use now our T20 Torx to remove these two bolts, one and this is the second one. Once we remove them, we're going to be able to remove these little pieces. Now we will use our panel tool to get underneath in order to unclip it. And then the second one right here. We will remove 4 bolts around the screen, so there are 2 on each side. And as you can see, these bolts are different from the other ones. While working today, we're going to be dealing with 5 different type of bolts, but these smallest ones go around the screen, so just make note of that. And they are unique just to be around the screen. Now we need to remove these side panels on the center console. And there are 4 bolts that hold it in. There are 2 hiding right here and 2 are over here. So we'll first remove this piece underneath. You need to get underneath with your tool. We're just gonna pull this piece out. So there are just 2 clips that hold it in place. Now we will remove this one. So you'll get underneath here and over here. So as you can see, we have to remove these 2 bolts and then these 2 over there. And again, they are unique. They're different from all the other bolts. So these 4 bolts are the same. So just keep them separate and put them in the right spot. And we're going to use our T25 Torx for these 4. So in order to remove these side pieces, we will go and start from all the way at the back. So you're going to get underneath with your tool and you're going to start working towards the front. And we'll start lifting up this panel. So now it's been fully unclipped. And we can just move it away. We'll do the same now on the passenger side. So we'll start from the back. And then start unclipping it. Once it's been fully unclipped, you can start lifting it up. So with the side panels removed, now we have access to these 4 bolts that hold the HVAC control panel in place, which is hiding our head unit behind it, which we need to get to. So we'll use our T20 Torx and remove these 4 bolts. So these bolts are not unique. They're the same ones that were removed from here or from the side. Well, the ones that we were showing you earlier. And now you can grab this piece and we're gonna disconnect it right here. There's a clip at the back. So now there are 2 more bolts that hold the head unit in place. There's one here and one over there, and they are unique. You'll see why. And they use a T25 Torx in order to be removed. As you can see, they're silver and way different than all the other ones you're going to remove from this car. So now with everything removed, you have access to the back of the head unit, because now you can pull out the head unit and we're going to start doing connections, and also we're going to be doing connections at the back of the screen. So now we'll show you what comes in the kit and we're going to start connecting everything. So what comes in the kit is that you have your main module right here. Then we have our harness that gets plugged in at the back of the screen and the back of the head unit. We have our USB cable, which we're going to install onto the passenger side. That's used for wired CarPlay, wired Android Auto, and for updates. We also have our video cable that gets connected at the top screen. And then we have our wireless antenna for wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. So we're going to remove the head unit, and it's very sharp at the bottom. So we're going to just cover the dash here with some microfiber cloth. So we can pull the head unit out and we can rest it on the cloth, and it usually comes out with frame, just like you see here. That's okay. So then we can rest it here. And now we will remove the screen, and these 2 connections are the ones that we're going to connect to. So this one will unplug, and that will just be left unplugged, and we will connect our cable instead, and the other end of this cable will go into our module. And then this cable you also have to disconnect, and we will connect our harness instead. So this is our harness. So in order to connect it to the back of the screen, we first have to feed it through from behind the head unit area. So we can bring it out behind the screen. So the original connection gets plugged in here. This other end gets plugged in at the back of the screen. And then we will take our video cable and we will feed it behind. So it ends up behind the head unit. And at this point, we can put back the screen. So you should end up with these wires at this point. So you have the video cable from the top of the screen, which we connected. This is the other end of our harness. This is the harness that will go into the module. So now we will connect this harness at the back of the head unit. So here is the original connection that you have to press the clip and disconnect. We will take our harness and plug it in instead. Make sure that it goes all the way in. Now the original connection will go back into our harness. Now you should end up with this end of the harness and the video cable. So now at this point you need to decide where you're going to hide your module. So in this car we found the best spot. It would be over here behind the carpet. So we removed a little bit of foam and now there's enough space to hide the module there. Another spot would be above the glove box, so you can remove these bolts that hold it in. There's two on top, one on the side, two at the bottom, and then you can rest the module on top of the glove box. But we find that this place right here is better and it's a good spot. So we will feed our wires there. So we will take our harness wire and our video cable and we will feed it around the frame, around this spot, and right into that area behind the carpet. So now we have the cables on the passenger side. So we will leave them here and now we will put back our head unit in place, back to its original spot. So the best way to do it is to have the frame out and first put the head unit into the frame, because that's challenging in this car. So you have to make sure that it lines up here, that these wires are not in the way. You're just gonna push the head unit into the frame so it sits all the way in. Now we will move these wires out of the way and we will put the entire thing back. Lines up, so as you can see, all the bolt holes line up. So now we will start connecting everything into our module. This is our power harness, video cable, and we have our USB cable and our antenna. So now the module can go in here. As you can see, some of the foam is not there anymore. Plenty of space there. And then the antenna you want somewhere closer towards the back of the car, so it's not right at the module. So take your time when you're arranging these wires here so they're not in the way of the clips. And then you should just have the USB cable visible. And once we put everything back, you just want to have like this end of it sticking out. So the extra wire, you can use some tie wrap in order to make it all nice, and that's how the module will stay. So with the module installed, we're almost ready for testing, but before we do that, we're actually going to secure the head unit to the frame, because usually these bolts might be forgotten. So make sure you're putting them in carefully and don't drop them behind the dashboard. So we will secure these two bolts in. In order to test everything, we have to connect these two things. So one of them is this control panel. So we'll leave it here. And now we need to connect that bar with all the buttons, and that connects here. So with the ignition on, we're gonna test everything. So as you can see, because we installed our kit, now the original navigation is replaced by our product. We have our iPhone connected by the wire just for testing. Later we'll pair it wirelessly. So you can switch to our mode by pressing the nav button or pressing on the touch screen. So we'll press here. As you can see, CarPlay is already up. You're gonna check that the touchscreen is working. Also, in the original system, set the system of Jaguar to auxiliary and then test the sound of CarPlay or Android Auto to make sure that the sound is working. We tested everything works fine. So once the testing is complete, now we can do final assembly and put everything back. So with everything tested, now we can assemble everything back. So we already secured our head unit, so we can now secure this panel and put back our 4 bolts. We'll secure the screen. Remember, I told you about the bolts that hold that one, and they're the smallest ones out of all the ones that we removed today. So we're putting this panel now on the side, on the passenger side. So here, just make sure that you leave enough length for your USB cable. As we told you before, you're gonna have some end of the USB that you're going to use. And then once you've lined everything up, you're gonna start pushing everything towards the driver. So the panel clips back in its place. So these holes for the bolts have to line up. And we're gonna work our way down. As you can see, it's back and the bolts line up, and you just have a small end of USB coming out right there. Now we're doing the same on the driver's side. Once the panel is lined up, you can start clipping it back in. So as you can see, the bolts are lined up. So these 4 unique bolts were already mentioned before. They use T25 Torx. That's the ones that secure these side panels. Now this can go back in, it just clips in place. Make sure that this part with the velvet goes up towards the screen. Now we can clip in these pieces. So the first we'll do the passenger side. Make sure that these 2 things line up before the clips. Once it lines up with the holes, you can just clip it in. Now same thing on the driver's side. Now you need to secure these little panels with the bolts. Make sure to put them in now so you don't forget. Next we can put back the vents, so don't forget to connect the actual vents. Now carefully you have to maneuver it in while pulling out the trim around the cluster. Once it's in, you can also make sure to put the trim around. So once you make sure that it fits right, you're going to pull it out again and we will reinstall the bolt behind there. So first we'll put in the bolt with our fingers, and now we can use our T30 Torx to tighten it. So this edge, make sure that you wrap it around the vents and secure the trim around the cluster. Make sure that the bolts line up. There's one on top and one at the bottom, and that's the ones that we're gonna reinstall back now. And now you can reinstall the cover for the bolt. So we're going to continue with putting the bolts back. Now we're going to put back the passenger side vent. So first you need to connect it. Make sure that it goes all the way in. And before putting this piece in, you have to make sure that the clips are straight and are lined up. Because when you're removing them, these metal clips tend to go sideways. and then when you're trying to put them in, they just don't go into their place. Or you can transfer them over into the openings. That's what we're gonna do for the lower piece, but we'll show you how to do this one. So all the clips are straight. Now we carefully can put it in and clip everything in. Make sure you don't forget this wire. Now we will put back these 2 bolts. And now there are 2 more on the side here. And now you can put this cover back. So as you can see here, this is the final piece that we have to install, but it's held on these clips. And most of them are on this panel. And when we try to put it back, it doesn't go back nicely. So you will have to transfer over all of these clips onto the actual car, and then it will go in back nicely. So we showed you this tool in the beginning of the video. You can also use a flathead screwdriver to get underneath these clips in order to remove them. Once you remove them, you just putting them back into the original spots. See, some already stayed behind, so you just push them back in. So all the clips have been transferred over, and now we're going to connect the panel back. So these are the 2 connections, and then we're going to slide everything in. So the installation has been completed. We also paired our iPhone wirelessly to the system. So now you can enjoy CarPlay or Android Auto in your Jaguar XF. I hope you liked the video, and we'll see you next time.